Professor Chandra Pujari, Director, Karnataka State Higher Education Academy, Dharwad. Professor Shiv Prasad, former Director of the Academy. Professor B.L.V. Prasad, Director, Census Bangalore. Professor Jiv Kulkarni, President, Jawaharlal Nehru Center for Advanced Scientific Research, to celebrate whose birthday we have all gathered here. And distinguished speakers, undergraduate and postgraduate students, and all invited participants, and for national and international audience. Professor Rao and myself are delighted to be participating in this outreach program session. We have been doing outreach program for decades before it was called an outreach program as a separate activity. We have been doing it at various levels. I myself have been doing it at school level for deprived and disadvantaged children to inculcate in them a scientific temper and the joy of doing science. Whereas Professor Rao has been doing it at all levels, graduate, postgraduate, practicing scientists, and anybody who is interested in learning more about doing science. Recently, this has assumed great importance in view of the fact of the mission to educate the masses. In this regard, even though our approach is a different audience, our objectives have always been the same, which is to develop scientific temper and transmit the joy of doing science in all the participants. This time it is no different. We normally do the outreach program by narrating the story of how ordinary scientists, men and women practicing science, do extraordinary science by their dedication and their total commitment to communicating the knowledge and pleasure of science. There are two scientists who appeal across all ages and across all participants. They are Michael Faraday, the ultimate scientist, and Professor Mendeleev. We decided to narrate the story of Mendeleev as he is the creator of the greatest scientific table. This has assumed great importance in modern practitioners of science, where they have tried to unravel the mysteries embedded in each element. The Mendeleev's scientific table, name of periodic table, even though Mendeleev did not call it so. Now, why is it so important? Periodic table has in its table of elements, known elements, many properties which are yet to be discovered by scientists who probe the mysteries of the elements. It is in this regard that we narrate the story of Mendeleev. The title of our narration is A Life of Agony and Ecstasy of Dmitry Mendeleev, creator of the greatest scientific table. I am presenting this narration on behalf of both of us. Mendeleev's remarkable journey through life straddled two distinct phases or periods. The phase of agony, which lasted from his birth in Tobolsk, Siberia in 1834 to 1856. This phase was marked by poverty, deprivation, and tragedies. He was born on 8 February 1834 in Tobolsk, Siberia, to Ivan Pavlovich and Maria. He was the youngest 14 surviving children. His father went blind just before his birth and died from tuberculosis. His mother became manager of a glass factory to provide for a large family. As Dmitri was the youngest, she took him along to her factory. Her factory was his first school and mother first teacher. Dmitri was a very friendly child. He interacted with a glassblower and his brother-in-law, a scientist. He learned from his mother, everything in the world is love and truth. Everything in the world is art from the glassblower, and everything in the world is science from his brother-in-law. Dmitri enjoyed science but disliked Latin. He felt that even one Plato was too many, even hundreds of Newtons would not be sufficient for the world. Maria was convinced that Dimitri's destiny was in science, therefore started saving money from the earnings from her factory. Unfortunately, a fire broke out in the factory and destroyed it completely. But this did not deter Maria. She was convinced to provide Dmitri with the opportunity to study science at a good, distinguished university. So she decided to go to Moscow, around 1,600 kilometers, on foot with Dmitri and his sister, as they could not afford any transportation. She put them in a wheelbarrow and all the belongings, and not only walked but pushed the wheelbarrow with their things and one of the children. They reached Moscow after a long and strenuous trek. As expected, Dmitri failed in Latin because he had paid no attention at all in his gymnasium. So Maria did not want to be defeated from her goal. She decided to trek to St. Petersburg, where Dmitri got admitted to the Pedagogical Institute. However, this was too much for the frail and overworked Maria. She passed away within a few days of reaching St. Petersburg, and his sister followed her soon after. This was a body blow for Dmitri. He was in a strange place, far away from his family, and all alone, facing an unfamiliar future. But he had to face it. His mother's dying words were, refrain from illusion, insist on work and not words, patiently search for divine truth and scientific truth. These words shaped Dimitri's life and career because he followed this religiously. But this was not the end of his tribulations. He was diagnosed with tuberculosis soon, and he was given only 2 years to live. Dmitri was not to be defeated from fulfilling his mother's dream for him, for which she sacrificed everything, including her life. So he decided to go from cold St. Petersburg to warm south of the Crimean Peninsula at Simferopol and taught science in a gymnasium there. He returned to St. Petersburg in 1856, cured tuberculosis, and had regained his health and strength. He continued his master's degree program and obtained it. In a moving dedication of the diploma to his mother, he wrote, "This investigation is dedicated to the memory of a mother by her youngest son. She educated me by her own words, instructed me by example, corrected me with love, and in order to devote me to science, she left Siberia with me, thus spending her last resources and strength." This marked the end of phase 1 and his tribulations. 1859, beginning of phase 2. He was deputed by the Russian government for 2 years to study scientific advances made in France and Germany. Attended the first International Chemistry Congress held in Karlsruhe, Germany, where it was decided to fix the atomic weight of hydrogen as 1 in 1860. This event can be said to mark the beginning of modern chemistry. He returned to Russia. Soon after, he joined the Technological Institute in St. Petersburg as a teacher in 1861. When he started teaching there was no textbook worth its name. No textbook explained the difficult concepts to the students, and even the teachers found it difficult to communicate. So he decided to write a textbook himself, and he called it Organic Chemistry. Unbelievably, he wrote it in just 61 days, just 2 months, and he was only 28 years old. It won him the prestigious Demidov Prize. The genius of Mendeleev. This act of writing the book in 61 days, he wanted all budding writers to know that there is no talent, neither genius without hard work. Young Mendeleev had arrived on the Russian scientific scene with a bang. His rise was meteoric. He became professor of chemistry at the University of Petersburg, obtained a doctorate for his thesis on combinations of water with alcohol, and most importantly, he decided to write Principles of Chemistry, a textbook in 2 volumes in 1866. The outcome of this decision was his magnum opus, the periodic table. Mendeleev's periodic table, from a sketch to an enduring masterpiece. Mendeleev was convinced of the inherent order in the way elements were arranged. He was determined to unravel it. He was an avid card game solitaire or patience player, where cards are arranged horizontally, that is, diamonds, clover, heart, and spade, and vertically. He thought he would prepare a pack of cards on then known 53 elements. He played chemical solitaire with his pack of cards continuously for years. Finally, he unraveled the basis of the inherent relation among the existing elements. Finally, he discovered the relationship. I am presenting his first version of the table, in which he has left, as you can see, he has left some blank spaces. Why did Mendeleev leave blank spaces? Let's see. He arranged all the cards and noticed that in the vertical columns, the first element of the next row had similar properties as the first element in the previous column. However, the pattern of properties repeated themselves only when he left some gaps in the table. He thought about it for a long time, and in a flash, he realized that these elements actually existed but were yet to be discovered. He called the missing elements Ek aluminum, which later was discovered and named gallium, Ek silicon, discovered and named germanium, Ek boron, discovered and named Scandinavium. I am presenting here the first version of Mendeleev's periodic table. As you can see, it's a handwritten table, and on the right side, just the same thing without notes there. There is a legend associated with this, which says Mendeleev had a dream in which all the elements fell in their correct places. But actual fact was, he struggled for years before he discovered the relationship. Mendeleev became a celebrity overnight, but this eclipsed his true genius. He was a polymath, a physicist, a meteorologist, economist, meteorologist, geologist, and a builder. He built Arctic icebreaker, which is essential in frozen Siberian North, an aerostat machine, which is the forerunner of a hot air balloon, and interestingly made signature suitcases. And he was also the first to realize that oil could be transported through pipelines. Mendeleev was one of the first to understand the origin and importance of petroleum deposits. He said burning petroleum as fuel would be akin to firing up a kitchen stove with banknotes. This statement holds true even today. We still make the same old mistakes. Mendeleev, the man. We have to look at what kind of a man Mendeleev was, who could do so many things so effortlessly, could think academically, and could also be a practical man. But two things: he was a man of principles and great courage. But the thing that we have to know about Mendeleev are the two things that characterized him were his love for teaching and his love for his countrymen. Mendeleev loved traveling in crowded trains with his fellow countrymen farmers, educating them of the need to modernize their way of farming to get more yield, and his love for teaching in a classroom. He enjoyed teaching his countrymen as much or even more than teaching students in a classroom. Mendeleev had a larger than life personality. One of the things which we can see is he trimmed his beard and hair once a year in spring, as he thought that it was a useless activity. I am here presenting the stages of the length of hair and beard from 1862 to 1905. He was a man of great courage. He defied the Russian Orthodox Church by marrying without waiting for stipulated time after his divorce from his first wife, Fyuzva. Fyuzva and he were married for over 16 years. He was committed to his teaching and academics even during his married life. Fyuzva was fed up and she asked him one day, "Who do you like more, me or your teaching and academic work?" Mendeleev was truthful and he said, "I love both you and teaching." So she continued further and said, "Who do you love more?" So he said, "I'm being very honest, I love my teaching more." This enraged her and she sought divorce from him. And Mendeleev married young Anna, a student, who shared his passions and the way of life without waiting for the stipulated time after the divorce. The enraged Russian Orthodox Church members wanted to excommunicate him for bigamy and took their complaint to the Tsar. The Tsar listened very patiently to the members of the church and said, "Mendeleev may have two wives, but I have only one Mendeleev. I'm afraid I can't excommunicate him." Mendeleev received recognition from various quarters. He received the Copley Medal of the Royal Society, London, which he treasured most. Artificial element number 101, Mendeleevium, is named after him. He was unlucky to miss the Chemistry Nobel Prize. There is a story behind it. The 1905 prize was given to the Frenchman as he was on his deathbed, and Mendeleev was considered young enough to wait for an extra year. Unfortunately, Mendeleev died in the meantime, and Nobel Prize is not awarded posthumously. Mendeleev died on January 20th, 1907, listening to his beloved wife Anna reading Jules Verne's Journey to the North Pole. We can pay the ultimate tribute to this truly remarkable and unique and multifaceted colossus in his own words. "There is nothing in this world that I fear to say. No one nor anything can silence me. This is the feeling of man. I want you to have this inner freedom. It is my responsibility to help you to achieve this inner freedom." Who is this? I'm sure you recognize Einstein. Who is this? Mendeleev. Einstein asks Mendeleev, "What is your favorite element?" Mendeleev replies, "Element of surprise." What is yours? Thank you very much.